Here we go. Let's see if it can do both. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing great. Wait a minute. You can't see me. Let me see if I can make that a little bit different. Where'd I go? Hi. There we go. Welcome back into my little world. I'm at this point just need to do a little prep work. I'm going to take these little pieces of glass that I've got here and weld them together so that way I can keep using them. Alright, here we go. I've got a little pair of hemostats that are one of my favorite tools because they are made just so you can grab these tiny little pieces of glass and you don't have to get your fingers too close. Of course, that's pretty close too. All the same, we'll be able to weld these two together and then keep on moving forward. Get all these little pieces that build up over time, and you just have to do the prep work. There we go. Just trying to melt that all in nice. And now that we've got a little ball, we'll stretch it out just a little bit. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now, you always prefer using my hands versus a tool if I can. So the next thing I'll do is just add those two together. I don't have to get my fingers too close. There we go. Melt those in nice and well, and then we'll just kind of heat that up. Stretch it out ever so slightly. There we go. And I think we'll add this last one on. I like keeping the longer sticks towards the end so that way they're less likely to break as a handle. So I'll add these two long ones together here at the bottom. There we go. And I just need to let this cool until it solidifies. Perfect. Alright, what's next? Got our dichro side up, and we've got a big piece of glass to work with. There we go. So we're just going to heat up the end of this and build a little bit of mass up so that way we can then take the dichro we have here and encapsulate that within the disc of glass that we're going to be making here. See if we can't speed this process up a little bit. Grab a good old graphite marker. There we go. Everything's getting melted in pretty well now. Just want to build up a little more mass here before we smash it. Alright, my next step, that I've got this mass built up that looks pretty decent in size. I'll just make sure that it's heated all the way around. Pull it out of the flame, give it a little smash here. Maybe a little bit more. Heat it up again. Sorry about that. I'm going to put this lens on here. See if that doesn't make a difference. Alright. Now that I've got the disc here, I want to incorporate the dichro. And I find that this works pretty well for me. So what I do is I heat up one side of the disc, and while it has the radiant heat flaring out around the sides, I then take the flat sheet of dichro, and this pair of tweezers here, and I hold the uncoated side towards the flame. The coated side stays on the top side, so that way the direct flame never really hits that, and it keeps it from kind of burning and turning to ash. The dichro is particularly fragile, so you have to be very careful with that. And that's why I'm heating up this clear, so it's becoming white hot and quite malleable. And once I find that it's really ready to go, has a good heat base, I'll then put this dichro right down on there, kind of give it a little smash, ensure that every edge is kind of encased a little bit here. That looks great. So now I can go in and just melt that right in. But I always like to add a little additional clear into the top layer. So I will add a little additional clear. Let's see, don't touch those hot welds. And here's a nice, relatively short piece. I think this is about a 10 millimeter glass rod that I've got in my right hand that I'm going to be applying to the dichro, the backside of the dichro. Right on the edge where I cut the glass apart, there's a bunch of bubbles from all the little hairline fractures that went through the glass. So I want to heat those up and remove that. Alright, now that I've got those contaminants out of there, I'll then heat up the glass again. And I'm warming up that dichro, so that way the glass disc that I created with the dichro on it is now hot and sticky. And that way when I melt the clear rod onto it, the disc is ready to accept that. If the two aren't at least relatively close in temperature, they can separate, especially as they cool. So we're really just trying to get the two really hot, so that way they're ready to flow together. And I'm rotating the clear rod back and forth slightly, so that way a little bit of that heat can rotate to the backside. And the backside of the glass rod, which is never quite directly exposed, still gets some of that radiant heat as it rotates back and forth. There we go. And I've almost covered that entire surface. And I think I want to put just a little bit more on there. There we go. And I'm just heating, making sure that I'm getting this rod all the way around as I'm melting it in. And that's just to make sure that the heat migrates into the center of the glass rod, and it all kind of melts in evenly and flows out evenly across that surface as I'm gently pressing it down. Oh, now that looks like there's plenty of clear glass on top of that dichro, so that way now when I next go to spin and twist the glass, that dichro won't be right up by the surface, but instead it'll be deeply embedded inside. Give me just a second here and I'll show you what it looks like at this stage in the game. There you go. There's our piece of dichroic glass in there. It's purple, if we get the light just right on it. Alright, and you can kind of see that there's a thick layer of clear on top here that I just put on there. There we go, you can really see it there. So now that that's cooled just a bit, I will go in and put on this handle. Alright, and I'm really melting this in. This is what I want to be a good, well-connected handle, so that way it can take a lot of the stress of being rotated here. And I'm now moving where I'm keeping that handle outside of the direct flame. It's still getting some of the radiant temperature that's coming off the sides, but the real focus is on the disc itself and on this other handle, the thick other handle, because those are all quite chilly at this point, and I'm looking to get them up to be about the same temperature as that smaller handle that I put on. Alright, and that disc looks like it's glowing pretty well now. I see a lot of orange and very few shadows inside. So now that that is nice and hot. Oh yeah, look at how malleable that's getting. Okay, so now I'll start doing the twist. I don't want to too rapidly spin this because it can wind up pulling the glass very thin and you can wind up losing your work. So I'll take it out for a second, making sure that it's keeping that attractive spiral on the inside, kind of controlling it. Where I can see that it's not moving as much as I would like, I'll go in and heat that particular area, so that way it's more likely to move, and take it out again. Let's see if we can get that camera to focus here. Oh. Let's go back. Alright, so we've got this nice twist inside. But ultimately, I want this to not be a long thing. I want it to wind up being a marble or paperweight. And so, with that goal in mind, I'll now continue to rotate it and twist ever so slightly as I press the two ends together. I'm not doing this very rapidly or pushing much pressure on it as I go. I'm doing this very gently, trying to maintain control over the shape that's on the inside as I go. And I can see kind of where these high ridges are, and I'm heating the glass, those high ridges, so that way it'll kind of flow down into the valley as they get hot. There we go. That's looking great to me. But it's getting a little thin and out of control down here. So I just want to heat up that a little bit so I can get a little more overall control in the long run here. And I want this left hand to become a viewing window in the end. So just making sure that that heat base isn't completely lost. There we go. That's starting to look great. Now I can see that there are two little caves that want to form, and I'm trying real hard to make sure that they don't turn into little caves that catch bubbles, but instead I'm able to kind of push them out. There we go. That looks great. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. Oh, look at that great connection. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, that left-hand side is perfect now. But the right-hand side looks pretty rough. So let's work on that right now. It's got a lot of heat that's migrating out of the left and towards the right-hand side, which is a little cooler. So we'll heat that up from both sides now. As the heat migrates from the left, I'll work on it from the right. And then bounce back to the middle. Here we go. Oh yeah. Okay, so now, once again, I'm trying to make sure that I'm melting everything in, keeping the those like kind of high areas really, really hot, and then kind of going in and watching as they flow down into those little valleys and such. But I'm trying to ensure that I'm not going to get any pockets that'll catch air bubbles. Alright. Wonderful. So now I think I want to add just a little more of the clear glass to this end. I can see how that dichro is shaped on the inside. It's got this kind of nice, gentle spiral that's occurring, and it turns really more into like a ribbon of color. And so I want to kind of accentuate the shape that's going on there and intentionally heat up this clear glass rod and move it towards those areas that will open up that ribbon just a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, that is looking really, really good. Alright, I think we're just about to the point where we can remove this handle and try to do a little shaping. Almost. Oh no, that looks good. Okay, So now I'm to the point where I'm ready to remove that handle. So I'm turning both of the handles kind of at a 90-degree angle to each other, and we're twisting and just letting that glass kind of pull itself thin. I'll then go in, tidy up the little handle here. I'm just kind of trying to smooth that out so there's no little undercuts or anything, so that way as it cools, it'll all cool evenly and it'll help reduce some of the stress that's inside the glass, so that way as it kind of shrinks and I introduce it back into the fire later, all of that compressed energy from it kind of unevenly cooling will be from the absolute inside to the outside. It's going to be a slight difference in as it cools. And so, yeah, if there's a bunch of undercuts, then it really introduces a lot of extra stress into the glass as it cools unevenly. But if it's nice and smooth, the heat once again can migrate in evenly to the center and kind of melt everything and reduce that stress. Well, with all of that said, I'm now to the point where I'm heated up this large mass of glass. It's not quite a marble shape yet, but that's what these are going to be for. Let's pop this into this largest mold here. Gently shape it. I'm rotating to make sure that I'm keeping it on center. And I'll do this a couple of times as I go. If anybody's out there and you're seeing this and you're enjoying it, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. It's really going to help me out, and it'll let you know if I ever put any new videos out. It'll just let you know. But it won't actually hurt anything, and does me, like I said, a world of good. And I would like to say thank you. Okay, now, the heat in this is built up again. I can see there's a lot of movement that's going on. So I'll go back over here. Once again, kind of put it down in there, gently rotating and keeping it on center. Yeah, look at that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. Well, I may have gone a little too far, too heavy-handed there, and pushed it in a little bit. So I think I will, actually, go in and just gently marver that out, because I don't want to catch any bubbles, and it looks like it was quite likely to do that. But not anymore. There we go. That nice hemisphere there. There. Purple dichro inside. It'll show up a lot better once we get a little dark behind it. Alright. So, this one I am going to add a little peace sign into the equation. Get that just right before I insert it. So you might be able to see this here. Let's see. Oh, maybe not. Oh, I don't know. It looks pretty iffy for you. There we go. That's the little peace sign Marini that I'm going to be adding in. So now that it's cooled and I can see what's going on inside, I'm just going to pick a place that has a little bit of a viewing window for this peace sign to be mounted into the glass. Yeah. I'll heat up that direct spot that I want to apply it. That exact spot is getting really, really hot here, and once I see it white hot, I'll just add that on. making sure that it stays attached, and let's see. There we go. So it's on there. Now what I want to do is go around that, heating all the way around to make sure that the glass around that image is also getting hot, so that way as the image itself wants to become liquid and then flow down and out, it'll be able to do that evenly all across that surface area. And once I see it has done that, I can peek inside, and it looks pretty good to me. I'll quickly go in here. There we go. It's all smooth with everything else, and I think I will very quickly take that blue rod that we did in the beginning, and we'll just add a little bit of blue. All of these little seams or the connection points are now cool, so I don't have to worry about burning myself. And I'll use this ridge that we've got here as my guide for adding color. And so I'm just rotating both hands here at the same time. The one in my left hand is rotating away from me. The one in my right hand is rotating to the left, as considered by the top of the glass. Alright, I'm getting to the point where these two are being connected, and so I'm going to take an extra little bit of time to melt those two connection points in, and then very carefully continue rotating, trying to ensure that I don't mess up that connection point where it can look a little wonky. And here I'm just slowly rotating, making sure that the two pieces of blue glass overlap on the edge as they rotate around and melt together. And I'm also, as I cover up that peace sign, I'm trying to not press too hard on that. I don't want to change the shape of that image. I'm really just trying to heat the blue glass, and as that's coming around, and leave the peace symbol just below the flame, so that way it never really quite has an opportunity to change shape, but the blue glass can be kind of smashed and flattened out across the top of it. Whereas the rest of the marble, I'm still letting a lot of the heat, the edge of the marble get into the flame itself and the bottom of the flame. So that way the two are nice and really hot and willing to kind of flow together. Now I don't want to get the marble way too hot because it can change the shape of the marble, and that's counterproductive. It just means you're going to have to get back into the marble again and again more than you would already. I mean, I'll have to do some just to finish out the shape, obviously, but you just don't want to distort the piece that you've created, if you can help it. Yeah, big part of the key to working with glass that I found is just being patient. My fingers are starting to get hot here, so it's becoming difficult for me to think. Let me get so I can talk to you without having to deal with the pain. Okay. So a lot of glass blowing is just being patient and letting the glass kind of get so hot that it really wants to flow and move, and not forcing things. And really just utilizing that heat control as it migrates slowly through the material. There we go. Love it, love it. Once again, I'll do a little housekeeping here, just tidy up the end of that so it doesn't crack or pop on me later when I reintroduce it into the flame. And I'll go back into the end of this now and just melt in all of the little ridges and undercuts and peaks and valleys. I just want to make sure that this is a nice smooth surface here. And so once I see that the cobalt blue is glowing evenly all over, I'll then go back into the marble mold. And I can see that there's a bit of a haze on the surface of the cobalt blue, and that's just metals that have come to the surface as the glass has been worked. Some glass you'll find that happens with, others just, it's never an issue. So what I've done now is I've just changed the settings on my torch a little bit, so that way there's a very oxygen-rich environment that's happening inside the flame itself. I've reduced the amount of propane there is, increased the amount of oxygen, and so now those oxygen molecules are looking to bond with extra things as they're kind of racing out and across the surface of this marble. And by getting the glass super hot, it's becoming this liquid, and the extra oxygen molecules are then grabbing onto those metal molecules and then ripping them free of the surface of the glass and then going out into the exhaust fan. So I'm kind of watching to see that haze burn off as one thing, and then also just kind of watching the peaks and valleys to kind of smooth themselves out a little bit. This can take a couple of minutes. More of the haze is the problem at this point than the little hills and valleys, because those I could go right into the marble and shape this up and it would be just fine. But the haze, I don't want there to be a kind of a gray haze on the surface of this cobalt blue, because that just would not be pretty. Now we're tall. So, let's see here. It's almost done here. Okay, that looks much better. So I'll increase the flame again. Get it all nice and hot. And go back into the marble. Shape this up. Looks like I'll have to do it twice. Okay, we're getting there. I can see that nice orange glow all across the surface of this marble now. Alright, most of the shadows are gone. We'll now take it out, pop it back into that mold, rotate it. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now, what we'll do is we'll switch handles. I'm going to get both pieces of glass. Pretty darn warm now. And once that's done, once they're nice and hot, I'll take one of them out early and let it cool just a bit, because I want the molecules to kind of shrink down and contract as they lose that energy, while the other ones are still like getting all dancy and partying and dancing around all crazy. So now when the two get together, they'll have different levels of energy. They will have spread out more or contracted a little more, and that'll put some tension on them as they all continue to cool down, because the surfaces where those two are met are now going to want to pull apart later, as long as I don't get them too hot, that is, in the course of making the rest of the marble. But the nice thing is that shape that we've got really lends itself to not letting the heat migrate around at this point. So it should stay nice and cool back there. Well, relatively speaking, that is. Okay, so we're going to just heat up this part, and the clear glass that I'm heating is going to become the lens of this paperweight. So just rotating all around both pieces of glass very gently, giving a little bit of pressure as I push the rod into the marble. And I'm just trying to make sure that I don't catch any of those bubbles, as I've stated before. As I press this together, it could potentially trap a little pocket of air, and then you'd have this bubble, and if you try to chase it, you can wind up with these long little caves that go throughout the surface, and they become these kind of seams. And it's best if you can just try to avoid those from the beginning. And that's the best way to do that, is just to make sure that you keep the glass evenly heated all the way around as you press it in, and you don't go too rapidly. If you really try to force things, then the glass isn't going to accommodate, and it's going to do what it wants versus what you want it to do. Yeah, there we go. That's really looking nice now. Alright, so I need to add a little more. So I'll scoot over just a little bit. You can kind of see where we're at this point. Alright, so I'm just going to heat this up a little more. I want to add just a little more mass so that way it'll be pretty evenly shaped. And I won't have to drastically change the overall shape if I can get the mass to be equivalent on the left side as it is on the right. Now normally I wouldn't be taking it out of the flame like I did to show you. I'd just consistently keep things moving. And part of the reason is that because it's quicker. But a second thing that I have noticed is that sometimes it'll actually change the coefficient of the surface of the glass, and you'll get these weird kind of chill marks that happen on that transition where the glass was heated and then cooled and then heated again a separate time. I don't know exactly what's going on there or why that is. So if anybody knows the cause of that, please write in and let me know, because I'm a curious bird and I want to know. Ooh, this is looking real good now. Alright, that looks about right to me at this point. So I'll then let that kind of chill just a little bit, and I do mean just a little bit, while I go in and heat up the thick, clear rod that's on the left-hand side here. And I'm just trying to get that off of there. I want to fire cut through it. So I need to get a lot of heat all the way inside, and then I can start twisting back and forth a little bit. And as it goes, we can see that heat just kind of get in there, and it pulls it right apart. Alright, now I'll turn these two kind of at an angle to each other, and they're not in a straight line anymore, and let the fire cut through those. And as it gets real thin, I try to move it away from the candles, or the real base of the flame.